Okay folks, this piece is a bit grotty, a bit dirty, but I'm desperate for materials, folks, that I need to find to make my demos, because I'm trying to get on the 6 o'clock news on Channel 9, and I just feel I've got to keep making this shit until I get there. And yes, today's a dark, rainy day, lots of torrential rain forecast for Sydney today, and we've got my light on for the first time since I had them installed. The cool white replacing warm white. It's still an old fluoro globe because I had some fluoro globes that I purchased a while back before they were starting to phase out fluoros. Fluoro's due to mercury because mercury is present in pretty well, on all fluorescent tubes and globes is mercury. You can't have a fluorescent light without mercury. Mercury is just a part of the process of making light in a fluorescent tube or a fluorescent globe. So sad to say, I'm going to miss the old fluoros, folks, especially the tubular ones. They bring back memories of my childhood, and there's a lot of lighting enthusiasts online who are really miffed, who are going to be really miffed when LEDs become the choice of replacement lights when their tubes finally burn out. So, let's see how we go with this. Okay, let's see what we have here. A baby's dummy. Okay, dummy. Looks like it's a luminous one. Looks like it's the type that glows in the dark. Yeah, it's a glowy. Look at it, it's glowing. Oh, shit, yeah. I didn't notice that. It's a luminous, just like the, So you light it up, and then you take it into the dark, and it glows. Shit. Didn't notice that, folks. A glowing dummy. I didn't know they made dummies that glowed. And that's indeed a real... I love things that's another thing I like. Apart from lights, I do enjoy things that glow. I always loved glowies, folks. Glow-in-the-dark stars and all that sort of shit. And you can see from the light, it's just starting to give off its own light. And it's come up looking really quite interesting. I'm going to push it up a bit, but I didn't know it was a glowy. It was a glow-in-the-dark dummy, folks. Didn't know it was a glowy. I feel like washing it and keeping it because I just love glowies. I do. I love glowies, folks. And kids, I guess the baby wouldn't see it glow because it's in its mouth, but basically kids love glowies, and I love glowies. I must admit, the glow from a fluorescent tube when in the dark, when it's switched off, gives me the creeps. They look creepy when they're in the dark and they're not illuminated, they're not switched on. I don't know why I've got that somewhat fearful response to fluorescent lights. But, you get that, folks. This looks really interesting. I'm going to push it up a bit. But even when you put that under blacklight tube, that exhibits not just luminescence but fluorescence. Just like a fluorescent, the white phosphor material in your fluorescent tube or globe takes ultraviolet and converts it into visible light, and very powerful visible light. Fluoros have served mankind very well for a very long time. It's been nearly 90 years since the first commercial use of fluorescent lighting, and that was in 1934, believe it or not. I always used to think fluoro tubes were 1950s or very late 40s, but apparently they've been around since 1934, and would have been in the US, and General Electric manufactured them. They developed it and manufactured it. But I'm going to miss the old fluorescent lights, folks, when they're finally gone. But the old saying, folks, it's sad to say, it's really awful to say this to all the lighting enthusiasts like this, that it's progress, folks. It's fucking progress. We all have to deal with progress, whether it's good progress, and unfortunately much of the progress we have is shit. But basically, I do see that the tubes are indeed dangerous to the environment, tubes and globes that get improperly disposed, or if they break and you breathe in that mercury vapor, because it vaporises most of it's a gas. So you breathe that in and you can become violently ill, and it can kill you. So, but I do see that it's not going to be the same without the fucking fluoros. I grew up with fluoros, folks, as most of us have in some way, shape and form. And street lighting wise, we have LEDs replacing mercury vapor lamps, the big high pressure ones, and also the high pressure sodium, which has become the orange ones. I'm going to enlarge it on the horizontal and the vertical. It looks really nice. So yeah, it's really sad to see our favourite things disappear in this world. You know, that this world is like full of things that we love and we cherish, and yet we can't hang on to them forever. And I'm really disappointed, you know, that it's a pity we can't make fluorescent lamps with some other kind of gas that can do what mercury does to the phosphor when it comes to creating a ultraviolet arc inside the tube. And it really is sad that we can't find an alternative material that can do the same job as mercury. Really, it's disappointing, folks, but I know we have to deal with this fucking thing called progress, therefore. But, you know, things don't always work out the way they should, you know. People will often create progress just to make money. So, and, you know, and things that we should change, like the way electronic waste is dealt with, you know, like we're thinking about tubes and bulbs, but we're not thinking about big things like photocopiers, that we should make a law that prohibits money-making fuckery by making things not last long enough, like mobile phones, for example, that we want to make things last for the sake of our planet and the sake of the finite resources that these products uses. And it really is silly the way progress doesn't always happen the way that it should. And really, well, the photocopier industry is full of shit. This photocopier is nearly 6 years old, and yeah, and it should last like 60 years to make sure that the materials don't go to landfill, because there's a lot of toxic materials in e-waste. So it's not just about fluorescent globes and fluorescent tubes and high pressure discharge lamps like mercury vapor lamps and high pressure sodium lamps and metal halide lamps. So you light people would be familiar with that shit that I'm just mentioning. These lamps that you typically like to collect, and they're being phased out. And LED street lights are now everywhere. We've got them out the front of my unit here. So there they are. There's a couple there. We have a fluoro one down the street that's failed on us, and then when that gets replaced, they're not going to replace the tubes or the starters. So it looks like the starters have failed on that light because we've got the orange ends glowing and nothing else. Tubes were obviously on their way out. But basically, yeah, they're going to be replaced by LEDs. I've taken some photographs of the light fitting, so I've got a record of it. So yeah, it's going to be replaced. I had a fluorescent one out there a few years ago. It had the same problem. The orange ends, although they looked more magenta on this tube, funnily enough. But I really appreciate the fact that we're going these light fittings and light sources are going to become collectible, really well sought after. Once upon a time, the fluorescent globe and the fluorescent tube was so common, and now they're being phased out. They're going to be just collectibles, and hopefully someone will keep them and look after them, and this will be a memento from our past that we'd like to remember, like anything. See how we go. Yeah, that's come up looking really quite a treat. I think we can now call this demo quits.